The third thing that you told us to look for is team names.
Yes.
And that is about, supposedly, I would imagine, the Washington Redskins.
Yes, it is.
And so, first of all, why is the owner such a diehard around the name? Like, clearly if the name is a brand loser and the world wants you to change it, the Senate wants you to, everybody wants you to change, the President of the United States, why don't you just change it, move on, you're going to get a huge hit out of it, you're going to sell some jerseys and people are going to, like, why be such a diehard about it?
He's a stubborn guy. I mean, he is just, Dan Snyder is a notoriously stubborn guy. And I think also when you think about like sports teams and cities specifically, like people are so proud and territorial of their sports team and that team's name. And so I think that's what he's trying to hold on to, but
he's the only one though, ain't nobody holding on to him.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, what kills me, right, is that you have a city that changed the name of its professional basketball team from the Bullets to the Wizards because it was in the middle of the crack era and they thought that was a bad connotation to have. And it's just like, you can't make that leap. Like, come on, like that doesn't make any sense to me. But I don't know. I feel like the team's name has become a bigger deal than the team itself, and just from a brand perspective, that's awful, right? Like you're losing money. Like I don't know anybody who watches that team now and is able to actually watch it without this issue coming up. And rightfully so, right? The team name is downright racist. Like you can't actually like be proud to say that you are associated with an organization like that, and it's literally alienating an entire group of people.
But there's no leverage. No one can force him to change the name, right?
I mean, I think that you have activists who have really put him in a corner. I think what you see the difference now is that you have sort of an organized, strategic sort of PR campaign that's targeting this team, right? There was an ad that came out that was basically like, we call ourselves a lot of things, but Redskins isn't one of them. And it was such a powerful ad, right?
American group.
Like I actually looked at team names going way back, and I'm from the Bay Area, and our team is the Golden State Warriors. And way back in the 40s, the logo was basically like some Native American character with a spear, like holding a basketball, basically. And so you have a lot of these caricatures that have really...
It's so fascinating that the country put so much effort in terms of decimating and wiping out these tribes, but then now is really intent in these ways of embracing the identity.
Right, it's like, oh, we want to celebrate you. We're actually like paying homage to you. It's like, nah, dude, you've been killing them
exactly.
for like 500
so now that
years.
90% of Native Americans are gone. So.
Right.
So one quick question. Why do you think the issue of mascots is now? Right? These mascots have been around for a while.
Right.
And the Redskins complaint has been around for a while. So I wonder what's crystallized it as a national issue that's going from like these little hamlets to the nation's capital.
I mean, I think one thing is that you have sort of a deliberate attempt, at least on these teams' part, to try to paint themselves as multicultural, right? Like, if they don't have Native players or they don't have a big swath of Native fans, and at least they are reaching out to folks, right? So you have a lot of teams whose mandate is to basically reach out to your local community, and so they have things like in Sacramento. They have an Indian American owner, and they have a Sikh night to basically, like celebrate all the folks in the South Asian folks in Northern California, Sikh community, And so you have that sort of mandate, and that, people look at that and you're like, okay, you're celebrating people of color on the one hand and then also exploiting them on the other hand, right?
Right.
Like very, very obviously. But then you get down to stuff like the fact that a lot of the stadiums that these teams are playing in are publicly financed, right? And like dependent on wages that are predominantly paid by people of color. You have supposed jobs that are supposed to come to the area, and they're often like low wage, like seasonal positions. And so, I think that this is one of the things that's coming up in terms of the mascot thing, but I think there's a whole economic and financial infrastructure that hasn't really been tapped yet, and I think that's sort of bubbling up to the surface.
Yeah, and they get like $1 billion in subsidies every year, like from state and local governments. That's what I read. So aside from the tax exempt status, that a lot of these communities, as you say, which in many cases are now predominantly people of color, subsidize and underwrite these teams.
And what's interesting is you see a lot of stadiums being built outside of cities now.
That's right.
A lot of folks of color are now moving outside of cities because cities are just not affordable anymore. So you have Dallas's stadium is no longer in Dallas. It's right outside of Dallas. San Francisco, the same thing. And these are $1 billion stadiums, right? They're really, really expensive. So, you know, you see that when it comes to public financing, it's often on the backs of people of color.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hence the need to drop the name Redskins.
Drop the mascot.
So,
Yeah.
all right, well, hopefully that will happen sometime this year, and he'll come up off of his whatever he's sitting on to not change the name. All right,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, thank you.